Let's Talk Heard. Hi, Sheila. Thank you for joining me for part 2.
Oh, good morning, Camille. It's been
Yeah.
quite a while and a lot of water under the bridge.
Yeah, it feels like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to start with, I don't know, it feels pertinent, something that I realized the other day. It feels pertinent to that part of our discussion when you said, why didn't you realize that girl had these capacities for so long, And this is such a thing, for me, this almost like two worlds, parallel worlds, or maybe it's more like a paradigm, whether it's about training and control or whether it's about listening. So anyway, I've been coming up against this anxiety recently. I mean, it comes and goes around what I do with the horses. So I was reading a bit in A Course in Miracles that was saying that fear comes from a conflict between your will, what you will to do, and what you think you should do. And what I found really interesting about this was when I thought about it, my ego would have told me that what I will to do is actually the sort of training, because I loved doing that. I loved riding. And but what I think I should do is listen, and be, be in that vibrational, just pure dialogue. But actually, when I really felt into that question, I realized that it's the other way around. And the fact that it was the other way around felt like such a release. So, meaning that actually my will is to listen and to be. That's what feels really good to me, and really, it's taken a while to get there, and then I realized why, because the conflict comes from that I think I should be doing something with the horses and training, and I didn't realize, like I thought that I'd let go of that pressure years ago, like that didn't have any influence. But then when I suddenly had this thought that I'd let, especially Karam, because she's young and I've not done anything training wise with, I thought I've let her down. That's my fear, that I've let her down by not going down that road with her, because she's such a beautiful athletic horse. And so, yeah, that was where the fear, that's where the fear comes in, I think, because I haven't quite let go of that sense of what I should be doing. And it's so fascinating, really. So yeah, I just wanted to start with that, just to see what you feel about that whole situation and where you are with that.
Wow. Well, it feels to me that it, as always, it comes back to the raison d'être, the reason that we take incarnation at all, and the reason is to experience the humanness and the who personness simultaneously, and the experience of being incarnate with amnesia, the amnesia of not remembering that I am. swirls around that our entire life, and the collective consciousness is also of the the world, and of humans incarnate and everything is so influencing that simultaneously. The this is one of the things that girl was able to show me, was that there are just layers and layers of dense energies surrounding the planet because of the collective consciousness, and because of the nature of the nature of being incarnate is to be in complete free choice, with zero requirement or judgment or anything by the one who creates all. And so it's a real funny thing, isn't it? This being human and being who person, all at the same time. And things don't happen in straight lines here. They happen in, wild craziness.
Yeah. And I suppose, they also happen in time and space. So it's difficult to sort of understand the whole. It's impossible, I suppose.
Yeah. And from that place, I find that's where compassion arises from. The knowingness that isness is just all there is, and there's nothing to judge or require or do or be anymore. There's just the isness of a breath.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in there, the piece of acceptance and compassion and forgiveness and allowance for all that transpires is it's freedom, really. So probably more than anything, the gift that the awareness of what what girl was showing, not just girl, but girl especially, but what the animals and nature share is just all of that. And they don't care when we arrive there, or if we arrive, or if we feel the the slightest breath of it against our skin at some point. Is like whatever. And and maybe it's it's, I'm not going to speculate anymore, but there's just such a place of beingness and acceptance and compassion for this being incarnate.
Yeah, what you say makes me feel or think that that's kind of why we're here in this, in a way, in this illusion, so that we just eventually have to resolve the should that's created by the illusion itself, like because it is like the illusion of being separate beings, and then the should, like how you should behave and what you should do, and all of that just arise. It has to, because there's a contrast between. And I suppose when we resolve that fully, then we resolve the illusion, and we really understand that it is that, and that there's so it's a natural part of the journey, I suppose. Yeah. So do you feel that you can feel more from girl now that she's in spirit than before, or is it different?
It's it's totally different. Like um, as she was in her dying process for 6 weeks,
Mm.
the it's indescribable. I know I've written about it a lot in our messages, and I haven't reviewed them to recall, which I I wish I did before we came to this. But it, it it felt like that I was, and my prayer was that I would be able to be as present with her dyingness
Mm.
as I possibly could. So I really wanted to, like, in a compassionate way, recruit myself, my whole self, to be
Mm.
present with the dyingness, and really honoring that. And um, I don't know. It's kind of indescribable. uh, I call it the dismantling. So felt like everything was being dismantled. Like, the illusions were being dismantled. The physical body was being dismantled. Those dense energies around the earth were also being dismantled. Um, in a really beautiful and peaceful
Mm.
way. Um, and there's been so much transformation and evolution um, that was born of that.
Mm.
Um, that was born of her dyingness, and the way it's there. There came a point after some time that the energy of her felt so fine. At
Mm.
first, it was more almost palpable, um, and then it just became so fine that it wasn't the energy wasn't placeable anywhere. It was just like the
Mm.
fineness of sunshine, or the fineness of the autumn colors. There's just this isness of happening that isn't to it's not connected to the person that's me. It's
Mm.
connected to the spirit that's me. And so that's feels like that's the way that her energy is um uh I don't know what the word is.
Manifested, maybe,
Yeah, or
or
just, it's no more than that. It's like
expressing.
there's no um you know there's no separating molecules of air, really, is there? So there's no
Mm.
separating, molecules aren't even the right word, but the quantumness of the um
Mm.
beingness.
Yeah.
So, and I, as the, from the observer perspective, I can observe how the energy systems in the being that I'm animating is really altered with an A. And constantly altering. So, um, yeah, it doesn't feel that her energy is kind of a presence. It's just
Everywhere.
like, yeah, it's just, yeah, everywhere.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because often, I suppose, to bring up that beingness of someone or an animal that we've lost, we tend to maybe think of their personality, but it feels like what you're talking about is much more intrinsic. It's
Yeah,
not.
it's so far beyond the physical or the personality, or
Mm,
any definableness.
it's
Yeah,
like soul in a way, like
yeah,
like the whole her. And maybe that's quite, do you think that's a gift that she's able to give you because of your relationship, maybe, that you can feel that from your body, from being still a body?
Yeah, who can say how, how things happen or work? I surely, I'm not able to define or describe, uh, or, understand why or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were talking about her dying there, I just had this kind of idea. I suppose I've probably thought this before, but it was more, it was clearer, I think. Maybe the death of the physical body and the spirit rejoining the soul. Maybe it's kind of like the resolution of the illusion. Like it's the closest that we get to experiencing that from within the illusion. And so, in a way, instead of fearing it like we do, it's something to really cherish and learn from. And maybe as as humans, we're starting to understand that with these experiences. 'Cause maybe that's why we fear death so much, because it takes us so close to the end of the illusion. Because it really is like this, and this kind of harsh sort of shift. I don't know what the word is, like wall between the body, the physical thing, like the lack of eternity and the fact that it doesn't last and it's over, kind of thing. And yet the spirit is there and you can feel it. If you want to, you can feel that and how eternal it is. And so yeah, it's like that. It's like a portal or a doorway or an experience where we can really understand. A little bit like near-death experiences, when people talk about them. It's kind of like they understand that we don't really die. It's just
Yeah. Well, and Caucasian people, for whatever reason, have more, it seems like, have more, I don't know, aversion or fear or whatever it is about deathing, than many other, especially the indigenous cultures all over the world do. And certainly the animals as well. Deathing is just a transformation and an opportunity to experience freedom again, or experience the beloved again, and I've become, since I hospice cared my dad in 2013, and as a farmer and animal person, there's like the death of the body is happening all the time. The animals that we choose to eat and the animals that naturally die because their earth life is so much shorter than ours. It's for me, it's become just an enchantment, to be in the vicinity of a body that's dying, a being that's dying. And Mary Walby is with her. She really helped me sort of take off the last mantle of any concern or fear around it, in one of her classes of horse hospice caring, and that was a few months before Girl began her dying, and I knew it was on the horizon because she's 32, and I was watching her body deteriorate and everything. But it felt like such a link that girl had this ability to link me to, or link things in life together, and the gift of experiencing and diving really deeply into the what the fears are, not around the death, but my projection of an animal. An animal may be suffering, and it's my responsibility. It's my, I was so adamant about that it's my responsibility to ensure that they don't suffer, because I am their caretaker.
Yeah.
And to let go of that was such such a relief, and such a great, like a pouring in of light, and seeing like, oh yes, what was I thinking, that it's my responsibility? Do you know?
That's so huge.
Yeah, it was really, really huge to answer that question, and that Mary asked, and what are your fears around your animal dying? And that was exactly the fears. That I fear that they will be suffering, and it's my responsibility to ease their suffering. And I think she said something like, well, why? They're, this is my interpretation. The animal is also a sovereign being, and they have their journey and their raison d'etre. And I thought, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a big thing that's really coming up as well for me at the moment, with, there's a kind of, what's the word? A sort of movement, or a concept, or a belief that horses are they're dependent, and they're captive. And yeah, I've gone through some really deep, I wouldn't even call it thinking. It's just like being with that idea, because there's something about it that really just doesn't feel right to me. I was going to say repulses me, but that's a bit intense. It just doesn't feel right to think about it like that. But then I have to ask myself, does it not feel right because you don't like it? Is that just your ego saying, oh, well, it's fine because it's fine for you? And so, I had to go through, because what you just said is so where it feels comfortable for me, where it feels right. That we're all sovereign beings, that we're all responsible. And yet we're all dependent on each other, because we're all, we're not beyond the illusion, we're not separate. So in a way, dependency doesn't even really exist if you're going beyond the illusion. But then you could say we do live in the illusion. And that fear about animals suffering is really, I think it's probably the greatest fear of all people who love animals. I mean, when I think of, I don't really have nightmares. I think I've had like one that I can remember. And that did involve like a human, but a lot of my bad dreams are that I've forgotten about an animal that I was supposed to be looking after. I mean, it's crazy how I haven't had one like that for a while, but that's like a big deal for me, like that fact that I'm responsible. And I think it's such a step, such an awakening to understand that you're not. You know, I mean, it seems like, and you could call it spiritual bypassing, or, you know, if you want, but I think it's more that is the ego, just the insecurity of our ego that we feel responsible for,
Mm.
you know, for others, for who is, because if you realize that we're not separate, you know, on the level of truth, then how can we be responsible for another being? So yeah, I think, but about the death process, it's really fascinating to me, because it seems like when somebody is ready on all the levels to go through that, then it seems to be possible as well, in terms of, because a good friend of mine recently lost her old horse, and he was about 34, and I think, and he was looking well, but in the end, his ligament system, he just like couldn't even hold himself up anymore. And so he went down, and it was going to be really, really hot, and the flies were really, really bad. And so his guardian, she just felt like, you know, there wasn't any other option but to have the vet and to have him euthanized. And I don't judge that at all, because it feels like in that situation, that was the option, that was the best thing
For her.
for
Yeah,
her.
that's where, because that's where she was at.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also there is another aspect of it, that in my experience, when I've reconnected with the spirits of the animals who've gone, and they're very unconcerned about how they left. Like, they're just joyous that they left. So there's that as well. But then I think when you really want to be completely, as you did with Girl, when you really want to engage fully with yourself as well as with them, then it's almost like it becomes more easeful physically, on the physical level. It's not like something happens that, you know, makes that really hard. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah, it's really, it's a big thing, it feels like, is to trust, you know, to trust in the being, to trust in the sovereignness, to trust in the intelligence, not just of their physicality, but the, you know, the intelligence of God, the intelligence of the Creator, the intelligence of spirit and soul and isness is an intelligence. And, you know, if we if I practice, you know, being present with myself, being present with what is, whatever it is, and take heart from other great beings that have talked about this process of being present with what is, and things are as they are, and things are not what they appear to be. So there's all of this. It's all like it's all of this, like, I don't know, effervescence of living and dying, all in the same bubbling spring. And you know, lucky for me, with the experience of my dad, and being present with him and watching him becoming completely radiant as in the last few days of his life, and knowing, like, it was impossible to not to see him becoming spirit, because the radiance emanated from his eyes, from his beingness. No, it wasn't even from his eyes. It was just, this incredible radiance around him, and that my heart could easily be aware of, and be and it comforted me and assured me that what a beautiful, like, absolutely exquisite and sacred experience this being dying and being conscious of dying, and being able to the privilege of being in the presence of a being that's dying means that you're in the presence of the the portal, the portal between the physical and spirit, and how it just opens, and you like I get to go as far into that portal as I want to. I mean, there's a limit, but I want to go as far as I can into the portal and experience all that there is to experience there.